Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jimmy Allen with the Certified Partner Program, and today we're going to be talking about a quick tutorial on Z-index and what that is and how we look at HTML documents and their natural stacking order and how we can use Z-index to manipulate that natural stacking order so that we can get cool designs on our page without having to go into Photoshop or hire a designer or anything like that. So before we get started with what Z-index is, I actually want to talk about what the natural stacking order of a document is inside of, not just inside of ClickFunnels, but with any sort of HTML document. So what I'm going to do is right-click and inspect this page. And so that's going to pull up my HTML document. All right? So this is basically what it looks like right now. And it might just look like a bunch of like mumbo-jumbo to you, but I promise you by the end of this, it's going to make a ton of sense. All right? So in the order that all of these divs with our classes and their inline styles and H1 tags, data tags, etc. In the order that everything is presented here, this is the top of your document. And you can think about this as stacking up a bunch of plates, all right? I don't really have a lot of things to stack around here. Let's call this book the base of your stack, and you have this box is an element on your page. Right? So in a two-dimensional model, you see this as height and width. But there's actually depth to this if you turn it on this side, right? And so things don't just lay on the same level. They actually occur in what's called a stacking order. All right? So if this occurs first in your document, for instance, this HTML tag, which you can see right here, that occurs first, and then you have other divs and elements that occur later on in the page. For example, actually let's just inspect this image right here. So this occurs way farther down in the document. You can see by the scrolling bar. So because that occurs farther down in the document, it has a higher stacking order, so it will appear higher on your page, right? So if I take this little welcome piece of paper and put it sideways like that, this occurs later in the document, or further down in the document, therefore it has a higher stacking order. All we're doing with Z-index is playing with that stacking order to say, if I want this box to appear on top of this little welcome letter, then I can do that just by saying that this one has a higher Z-index than this one. And I hope that makes sense. I know this is a little tiny window, so I'm hoping it comes through clearly. But that's the best physical way that I can present to you guys about what we're doing with Z-index, okay? So now that we talked about the natural stacking order, just to show you real quick on a plane, this X and Y could be your width and your height, and your Z is actually your depth. So whether something occurs in front or behind on the page has to do with its depth on the page. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an example of a physical representation, because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around this when you're looking at a two-dimensional screen. But I promise you there's layers to your document in the order that things are presented on the page. A really good way to define this is if you go to w3schools.com and look at their Z-index page, and you can honestly just type Z-index CSS into Google. W3 Schools is the largest basically information provider for anything CSS and other code stuff, but we're looking at CSS right now. So the Z-index property specifies the stack order of an element. An element with a greater stack order is always in the front of the element of those with a lower stack order. And remember that Z-index only works on elements that have been positioned, whether it's absolute, relative, or fixed. Now there's a whole document down here that you can click on and read up on what all the different positioning means. But for right now, we're going to stick with position relative, which just means anything that is inside of a larger element will be positioned according to the larger element, or the parent, as it were. All right? Which just means if I'm going to sit here and manipulate this headline and this image, it's going to be manipulated in relation to the column, and the column to the row, and the row to the section, and the section to the document. All right? So there's an ascending order right there that you can kind of refer to. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I'm going to be tampering with both of these elements, I'm going to grab their CSS IDs and go ahead and set them as position relative. And it's not going to look like I'm doing much, but what I'm doing is I'm opening up the ability for us to start manipulating them inside of our CSS document. Alright, so let me grab this image one as well. Because remember what W3 School says, you need to position them in order to manipulate them with z-index. Alright? So now that we have position relatives set up for both of our elements on the page, what I want to do is take this cold night and place it right here above the fireplace, just like that. Alright? But because the cold night occurs before the image, guess what? That means it has a lower stack order in accordance with our document than the image does. Okay? So let's take this and give it some negative margin bottom and go ahead and push it down underneath that image. So we have margin, bottom, and let's call it a negative 40 pixels. And so check this out. Our words are gone. But they're not actually gone. They're still there, but we just can't see them because guess what? They're tucked behind the image because the image has a higher stacking order. Okay? So let's take the CSS for that image and let's give it a lower stacking order. Okay? So I'm going to copy this part, write some new CSS, and guess what? This is where we're going to start incorporating our z-index. Alright? So we can't see our words. Our image is on top, so that means we need to push the image to the back. That means we need to give it a lower z-index. Let's call that -1. Alright? So what does that look like? Oh no, we lost our image. Well, we didn't actually lose our image. It just got pushed behind the column. Okay? So that means we're going to have to tamper with both z-indexes for the headline and the image. Okay? Notice that we can see our headline now, but we've lost our image. That's because our image got pushed behind the document. Okay, so that one was wrong. We need to set this as the index of 1. And let's take the headline, and we want our headline on top. So let's call this one a z-index 2. See what happens now. There it is. We have our headline on top of our image, on top of all the columns, as it should naturally occur on the page. Okay? So we had to manipulate 2 z-indexes in order to make that happen, but that just goes to show that you can make text appear on top of graphics without having to hire a designer. You're in control when you use ClickFunnels, and a lot of people, they take it at face value and don't actually act on how powerful this editor can be. All right? So there's more stuff I would do to sort of clean this up and make it look nice on the page, but for now, this is where I'm going to stop our z-index tutorial. And I hope you guys learned something. This is some really powerful stuff that you can incorporate to any of your pages inside of ClickFunnels. And this is just a really quick example. But if you guys have any questions, please reach out to support. I'm happy to help guide you through this process. And hopefully this video was very informational to teach you about how HTML documents work and how to manipulate them with CSS and z-index. Thanks, everybody. Have an amazing day.